A woman once knelt before an altar in Constantinople, and the church later called her holy, Saint Olga of Kiev. That is the name history gave her. Canonized, venerated, remembered in icons with a soft, maternal gaze, a halo painted in gold. Here is what the icons do not show you. Under her rule, an entire delegation was lowered into the earth alive, still sitting inside the vessel that carried them. A bathhouse was sealed shut with human beings locked inside it, and then it was set alight. 5,000 men were given wine until they could no longer stand, and then they were cut down where they sat. And a capital city, a place where people had been born, had raised children, had buried their dead, was turned to ash using nothing more than birds. 4 acts, 4 separate calculations, each one colder than the last. This is not the story of a saint. This is the story of what a saint is capable of when the right person is taken from her. In the year 945, Prince Igor of Kiev rode into the territory of a people called the Drevlians to collect tribute. He had already collected it once that season. He decided to go back for more. The Drevlians did not send him home with a warning. They tied him between 2 bent trees and let the trees do what trees do when they are released. Igor was gone, and in Kiev, a widow remained with a son too young to rule and a throne with no one obvious to sit on it. The Drevlians saw an opportunity, not a threat. Their prince, Mal, sent envoys to Olga with a proposal dressed as a courtesy. Marry the man whose people killed your husband, fold your lands into his. It was the kind of offer made by men who believe a woman's grief is the same thing as a woman's weakness. Olga said yes. She told the envoys she was honored, that she wished to receive them properly as befitted their status. She asked only one thing. Let her people carry them to the palace, not on foot like commoners, but in the boat they had arrived in, lifted on the shoulders of her men, an honor fit for kings. The Drevlians agreed. Vanity is a door that opens from the inside. They were carried, seated in their vessel, across the courtyard of Olga's palace, to a deep trench that had been dug the night before. And then the boat and everything inside it was lowered into the ground. Olga walked to the edge and looked down at the men who still believed they were being honored, and asked them, quietly, if this pleased them. Then the earth was returned to its place. A second embassy arrived because the first had simply vanished into diplomatic silence, and silence invites more men to walk into the same room. Olga welcomed them as well. She insisted they bathe first to wash away the dust of the road before appearing in her presence. The doors of the bathhouse were barred from the outside. It was set on fire while they were still inside it. 2 proposals, 2 answers. Neither man who carried them ever understood what he was walking into until the ground or the fire made it clear. A grieving widow does not usually travel into enemy territory to mourn beside her husband's grave, surrounded by the very people who killed him. Olga did exactly that. She sent word to the Drevlians that she wished to hold a proper funeral feast at Igor's burial mound to mourn him according to custom and to make peace. She asked that mead be brewed and that the Drevlian people gather to share it with her as a gesture of reconciliation. They agreed. Grief, real or performed, tends to disarm suspicion. Thousands came. The mead was poured, and it kept being poured, cup after cup, long after the point where a careful man would have stopped drinking in the company of the widow of the man he had murdered. When the Drevlians could no longer stand, Olga's soldiers moved through the crowd. The historical chronicle places the number near 5,000. It was not a battle. There was no charge, no formation, no moment where the Drevlians understood they had a chance to fight back. It was arithmetic, a calculated exchange of hospitality for silence and silence for slaughter. Olga returned to Kiev having buried her husband and unmade an army without losing a single soldier of her own. One city remained, Koristan, the Drevlian capital, the place where the plan to kill Igor and inherit his widow had first been born. Olga laid siege to it, and the walls held a direct assault would have cost her soldiers she did not want to spend. So she sent a message instead. Surrender is unnecessary, she told them. I ask only a small tribute. 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every household. a modest, almost absurd request from a woman who had already buried thousands of their countrymen. The Drevlians handed over the birds, relieved to have escaped so lightly. Olga had thread tied to each bird, and to each thread a smoldering fragment. At dusk, the birds were released, and they did what birds do. They flew home. Every dovecote, every rooftop, every barn, every nest built inside the wooden city. They had always known as safe. Korostan did not fall to an army. It fell to its own instinct to return home. The city burned from 1,000 points at once, and there was no direction to run that did not lead toward more fire. What could not be reasoned with an army had been solved with an idea. Historians still argue over how much of this happened exactly as the chronicles describe it. What is not argued is what came after. Olga did not spend the rest of her reign burning things. She built roads. She organized the first formal system of tribute collection in Kievan Rus, replacing arbitrary raids with structured taxation and administrative reform that outlasted her by centuries. She traveled to Constantinople and returned home a baptized Christian decades before her own grandson would make it the religion of the state. The woman who buried men alive is the same woman the church would later call a saint. The empire she left behind was not built by the fire. It was built by what she did after everyone stopped expecting her to still be dangerous.